Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. A lot of buzz and a lot of chatter late last night around Tony White and potentially taking over the defensive coordinator position at USC. This has been kind of a wild story to follow because the last couple of days it was more Jim Leonard as the new defensive coordinator for USC. And then within the last 24 hours, it sounds like Tony White is the name to watch as potentially taking over that defensive coordinator position at USC. If you guys have listened to me the last couple of months, you know that there's not a coach that I hold with more respect than Tony White. We've done multiple deep dives into the Nebraska defense and talking about how Tony White has changed this defense. And if you're Nebraska fans, if you are the Nebraska Cornhuskers football program, you're doing everything you can to keep Tony White in Lincoln. And if you're USC, you're really doing everything you can to get Tony White out there to USC and taking over that defense. Truly one of the best coaches in the country. Truly one of the coaches that I love talking about the most. Really excited to get into this, talking a little bit about Tony White and his background, the proven track record he has at coaching and revamping defenses, and a little bit of the schematics in which he runs that 3-3-5 defense. Won't go too far into it until it comes official, but do want to get ahead of this and talk about Tony White and how he really is a phenomenal candidate for USC. I know a lot of Nebraska fans can certainly attest to what Tony White has done with the defense in Lincoln. Again, one of the best coaches out there in the country. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. The amount of support for the coaching carousel, the transfer portal, it's been a wild time. Cannot thank you guys enough for rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate all the support you guys have shown. And more importantly, best part about doing this is talking ball with you guys in the comment section. Would love to hear your takes on Tony White and the potential move out to USC. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Without further ado, let's get into it. And I want to start with the background of Tony White and why this move might make sense for USC, right? He has a ton of experience out on the West Coast, right? He played at UCLA, was a graduate assistant at UCLA, has coached at Arizona State, has coached at San Diego State. And what has been one of the biggest problems for USC the last couple of years on the recruiting trail is keeping that West Coast talent, guys at Mater Dei, guys at St. John Bosco, those powerhouses out in California, keeping that defensive talent at home at USC. The last couple of years, Dan Lanning has come in and grabbed a bunch of guys. They've been going out to the SEC and out to the East Coast. And you're a USC fan, you're Lincoln Riley, you're looking at all that talent that's right in your backyard and not putting on a USC helmet. That's a problem. And a guy like Tony White, who has a lot of experience out on the West Coast, recruiting West Coast talent, could play a role in keeping some of that talent at home. I think that's a massive storyline. But more importantly than the recruiting is the proven track record of Tony White as a defensive coordinator. Did a phenomenal job at Syracuse. But you take a look at what he just did the last year in Lincoln, Nebraska. This is a Nebraska defense that in 2022 was giving up almost 28 points per game, 4.5 yards per carry. Those numbers have dropped to 18 points per game. That's 13th best in the country and only 3 yards per carry. That is number 6 in the country. This Nebraska defense looked different. It felt different. And a lot of that was a result of Tony White. This is not a Nebraska team that went into the transfer portal and completely revamped this defense. A lot of those guys that were performing at such a high level in 2023 were guys on the program or in the program in 2022. And so you look at Tony White, the proven track record of taking over a defense, completely revamping it, changing the culture of the defense. It's all there. You saw it just happen in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I couldn't point to you another defense across the country that needs that kind of revamp in terms of the culture, in terms of the discipline, than the USC Trojans. What does USC struggle with the last couple of years, specifically under Alex Grinch, was the blown coverages, the lack of discipline, the lack of physicality along the lines of scrimmage, and the tackling. And this was a defense that when it took the field, no matter how much talent was on the field, it never seemed to come together. This is a Tony White guy that, it's going to come together with Tony White at the helm of the defense. Talking a little bit about the scheme, and we'll get more into the scheme. If this move does become official, we'll do a different deep dive and a deeper dive into the scheme of what Tony White likes to run. We've done it a few times for his time in Lincoln, but this is a guy that runs a 3-3-5, and I can see the biggest concern. I can already hear USC fans in the comment sections being a little concerned about the 3-3-5 defense. We've already struggled stopping the run, being physical. You're going to tell me we're going to go to a 3-3-5 defense where we're replacing a big body in the front seven with the guy in the defensive backfield? I can see the skepticism. What I would tell you guys is you saw the proof. And this Nebraska team took massive strides in stopping the run from that 2022 season to the 2023 season. Yes, it's a 3-3-5 defense, but you look at how they run it. I mean, those guys in the back end, they fire downhill, make plays at or along the line of scrimmage, and the added speed and athleticism and all the different looks a 3-3-5 defense can bring, that messes up offensive lines and their ability to run block and get up to the second level and get a hat on a hat. As a Michigan fan, we played TCU, another 3-3-5 defense in the college football playoffs last year, and I went into that kind of thinking we're going to road grade all over that 3-3-5. And what happened was all that speed and all the different looks that TCU was able to throw, Michigan really struggled getting to the second level, getting a hat on a hat. You saw very similar things for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Another thing I absolutely love about the 3-3-5 is the versatility. You have multiple different fronts, so it will be a 3-3-5. You might see 5 guys on the line of scrimmage. You might see 3. You might see 4. But more importantly, when you get into those third and long situations, which Nebraska was really thrived with stopping the run on first and second down, getting to third and long, we're going to give a lot of different looks. The offensive line and the quarterbacks, they're not going to go who's coming, who's dropping back in coverage. The offensive line struggle to pick up blitzes. The quarterback struggle to read coverages. There's so many different looks that a 3-3-5 can give opposing offenses. That is massive in terms of running a defense and creating those turnovers and creating those negative plays. But I mean, more importantly, we just talked about the schematics for the last 2 minutes, but what I want to harp on and kind of hammer that point home is the feel of the defense for the Nebraska Cornhuskers this last season under Tony White. It felt different. And again, a lot of Nebraska fans will probably be in the comment section telling you guys the exact same thing. Like this defense under Tony White, they tackled in space. They were physical along the line of scrimmage. It was a disciplined group. It was a group that whenever they took the field, they had a ton of enthusiasm. They played with their hair on fire. That's what's been missing at USC. So throw the schematics away for a second and just talk about the culture of the defense. Tony White is going to change the culture of the USC defense. And again, nothing is official yet. A lot of this is just Twitter rumors that you're seeing on Twitter. We'll talk more about it if this does become official. But Nebraska fans know, USC fans know, Tony White, I truly think, is one of the best defensive coordinators in the entire country. Would be a massive get for USC to get. And I mean, Nebraska, they're doing everything they can to keep Tony White in Lincoln, Nebraska. Appreciate you guys checking the boys out. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.